Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however, emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Welcome back to Give a Heck. This is part 2 of the amazing conversation that was started last week with Alison Lager. I hope you got some great value from part 1. I know it's been an amazing opportunity for you to hear exactly what it is that Alison does and how she helps people. We'll try to stay a little bit focused in part 2 here and get through some of the other conversations that I want to spark up with Alison. But regardless of that, check out Alison. Check out her podcast called Alison Answers. You can find it on all major platforms. But we'll talk more about that, and it'll also be in the show notes as well for the show. So, Alison, so far the conversation has been just unbelievable. I really appreciate everything that you've been sharing with the listeners. I have a few questions here I'd like to ask you. So that you can explain it more in detail. We talked a little about Mission Awake, but can you explain exactly what Mission Awake movement is and what processes you are utilizing to help people escape their mediocrity?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I that's my utter passion is Mission Awake. And basically what it is it's across quite a few platforms. So Mission Awake, Alison Answers is the podcast, and then it's Mission Awake. So basically, and then Mission Awake is also kind of like the undercurrent of my counseling centers. It's part of our core values, and I'm going to explain what it is, but it's in line with what we were talking about the importance of truth and the importance of staying awake, really, and current at all times. So if the Mission Awake is about, as human beings, we are programmed and we are following a navigation system. You can call it a map, you can call it a blueprint, people call it a paradigm, but we are blindly following the norm, air quotes, the norm, into lives that we're not happy with. We're, doing things we don't want to do, working where we don't want to work, hanging out with people we don't want to hang out with, not having money that we want to have, having dreams in our heart that are never realized. And we don't have to do that. And I feel like the key to that is being awake. And, this is what people are talking about when they're being self-aware, but it's more than that. Because what I have found when I back up and I look at 30 years of counseling people and doing and building a business and talking to all different people, like doing personal development, doing mental health work, which is different in a way. It's the combination of both, because I feel like what we're missing when we're just doing personal development, when we're applying all these principles, we're not getting to actually what the truth is. And that's the book that I'm writing, is the truth is good enough. I feel like society has taught us, because it's such a mistake averse society, we have been taught, at a very young age, that mistakes are not to be had. You should be ashamed of them. They're not there to teach you. We're not taught that, which they are there to teach you, obviously, but we're taught to be ashamed of whatever is true. If it doesn't look like everyone else, it's something that's not to be talked about. So if I feel like being goofy in a supermarket, or if I'm just like whatever, because if I'm just me, then I'm not going to look like you. I'm trailing. I'm going into my whole spiel. I'm coming back. I promise. Coming back to Mission Awake. It's all intertwined though. But bottom line is that Mission Awake is about, now we were talking about this last time. We were talking about the idea that when you're aware of your core beliefs, you're knowing the truth about what is happening, what thoughts are being on a loop repeating, what feelings are being rehearsed over and over again, and what your belief system is. The way that you know that is this is like the process. You asked me about the process, and I mentioned that before, is that I have people literally, where are you today? Let's just say financially. So if you find that you have a pattern that every time you get to a certain height in your finances, that something happens and you're back in debt again, right? That could be psycho-cybernetics, which is the idea of having a thermometer, that we all have a cap, that we have to maintain that degree of temperature in order to stay with our core belief. Am I being too complicating?
Nope.
Is this clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so because I'm bringing in all these different concepts. So it's the idea that our core beliefs will keep us at a certain level in all areas of our life in different ways. So Mission Awake is about being awake to the truth, and actually in the moment that you're in, being aware of your state of being. So I choose my state of being. When I wake up, I say to myself, Alison, you get to choose how you feel today. And today I choose blank, whatever that is. When you go to bed, making a choice about what you marinate in all night, that's a choice. Like, people don't know that they have a choice and that they can be in charge of creating the life that they're meant to live instead of following the masses. So being awake means that it's on so many levels, but at the most important level, and this is like this other group that I do, it's called Women of Excellence. It's a daily challenge where every single day I'm committed to this movement for women to change the mind of the female away from people pleasing, worrying about what other people think, denying themselves to please others, living in guilt. Every place that a woman is, they feel that they should be somewhere else. So if they're doing this, they should be doing that. If they're doing that, they should be doing this. They're not allowed to say no, and so it's like I have this sisterhood of women that we are daily, they have a challenge where they look at first the truth. So this is the process. First, you have to identify the truth. So I might say, okay, how many times over the last 24 hours, the last month, the last 3 months, did you say yes when you meant no? And that'll be what they write in their journal. Then the challenge is, okay, now ladies, for the next 24 hours, I want you to be mindful and awake. So this is Mission Awake. Mindful and awake to every moment where you feel the pull to say yes when you mean no, and be awake and aware to that, and then pivot, and then also teaching them and do it afraid, be brave, just for the next 24 hours. And we are incrementally, and I believe in small change is the power behind everything. Because everything is now. That's what Mission Awake is. I'm awake now. So it's just being aware in the moment that you're in, being alive, being awake. Am I answering your question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's true though. You have to be. You and I talked about this in the first episode, where we talked about the fact that mistakes are something you should learn from, right? Mistakes from life lessons into wisdom. And people just need to, if they have the right support and associations in their network, when they do go through that uncomfortable change and that little baby step change, and they feel uncomfortable, if they're a part of a support network like you're offering and that you currently do with women, it makes it easier for them to want to continue to adapt and change, because now they come back to like-minded Allison and group, and they may have that uncomfortableness, but they also have a bunch of cheering section of people
Yeah.
saying, you're doing great, you're doing
Yeah.
well, good job. Oh, that's okay that you felt that way.
Yeah.
That is a normal feeling for your evolution of change from your place where you were stuck, where right,
Yeah.
or where you were sleeping or not awake, right?
We're the
So
underground. We're the damn underground, right? You're
I
gonna
belong
change
to, I
the vote.
belong to, I belong
Okay.
to a men's group now that I
Good.
joined, where we actually meet tonight yet, for a couple hours. And Di Manuel, that guy I interviewed, actually has a men's group, and it's all about masculinity and dropping the shield and the theme is always, what is alive and real with you today? Where were you living on the tender edge? Right.
Oh, I love
And
that.
yeah, where are you alive and like, oh, absolutely. It's, you got to watch, what's alive and real with you today. You need to check out my podcast with Di. He's
Oh, I love
amazing.
that.
I
What's
interviewed him, and
alive and
he's
well?
what's alive and well and what's real in your life, like, right.
Love
And he talks about, and so they say, what's alive and real for you today, or in your life, and deliver it on the tender edge, like be vulnerable. And so we're a group of men that are all being vulnerable, that we're all sharing, and we don't give advice to one another. We each get specific time to share and talk. And then we, at the end, what did you get out of this? And then somebody could say, well, Dwight said this and I resonated with that and made a, or these three people that spoke, they said this and it really touched my heart. And we have hand gestures so we can never interrupt people. You're all mic'd up, right? We have hand gestures like, oh, I feel what you're saying, or, oh, I've been at that level, or, you know what I mean? Oh, that really resonated and touched my heart. It's just amazing. So when you talk about your your women's group, and you're doing that daily, I would love to have that on the men's side. I'm going to have to tell Di he should do that. But Di's actually, he's going to be in this year's TEDx. He's going to be one of the speakers. Now it's all virtual this year, but super nice guy, gone through his sort of stuff, and he's helping people level up with their mindset and nutrition, right? So there's a lot of connection to the people I have on my show, because again, based around mental health, physical health, financial health. Really, what else is there?
I have my list.
Oh, of course, you have a
This
ton.
is what I do a whole inventory.
And that's
It's
perfect
cool.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like spiritually, vocationally, financially, forget it. You're the guru, right? And then fun.
Yeah. I never thought of that.
Yeah, like an inventory, like how much fun do you allow yourself to have? Where do you cap off? Like how come we all have a place where we stop. And, that's like kind of what we were talking about before, being, a novice, always growing. So it's so great to do the inventory and ask the question, like, where have I capped my ability to take in love, or to take in money or opportunity or a better social experience? And you would be surprised. We all have these limits and we don't even know it. And that's what being awake does. When you're awake and you know your limit, even if it pops up, being aware of it. I love when a thought comes in that I'm familiar with. Like when I lost my book, I told you the story off camera. I don't know if I should trail, but I lost a whole book that I was writing. My computer crashed. So I'm just summing that up.
Yeah.
So when that happened, like I remember thinking, all right, what actually am I going to do with this at this moment? Because I have a choice in this moment. And that thought about being the girl who doesn't get, no matter how hard I work, for me, right? No matter how hard I work, I'll get right there. But I'm not going to be the girl, the woman who shines, who soars, like that's my core belief, that
Yeah.
but then there's the whispering voice, you were born to win, and like that. So I heard it. Now, if I didn't hear it and know the truth about it, it could talk to me and I'd follow it because I would just think it was me. But now I know when I hear that, that's an old belief that came from my childhood that is not currently true. And I don't want to follow that today because it's not something that's real. So then I'm going to choose again. I'm going to decide to create a different thought. So my thought was, wow, how is this badass mistake going to make my life just soar? And I remember I said to somebody, I go, I need help. Really, really desperately need help. You got to help me find something good about losing all of my book on the computer. And they're like, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, Alison. I cannot find one good thing about that. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to talk to you again. But anyhow, so like, thanks for nothing. You just helped me figure that out. But anyhow, so my point is that I had to struggle to find the good in that. I like woke up in the morning like, there's nothing good. And I'm like, there's got to be something good. But like that struggle.
So what was the good?
Oh my God.
I'm waiting, and so are the listeners.
I'm trying, people. Okay, no, I have good. I do. You know what I came to? I was going back and forth like, oh, you're not the girl who gets. No, because everything in me kind of believes that. I have to be honest. Like, oh, like, but what I saw was that how I felt about what I was doing, like just the process of going through doing all that writing, that it was cathartic for me because it was very emotional, the writing. But what I found was now there were so many other things that I wanted in that book that weren't there. And I decided that I'm going to start over and I'm going to deliver everything that's me. I wasn't going to adjust and mingle around with something that was not exactly where so I decided I'm just gonna write this thing. I know that it's confusing to the listeners because I didn't really explain the story.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I confused you all.
Well, basically, bottom line is you took charge of your own circumstances, and it was, you looked at the lesson of your computers crashing and realized that you needed to change exactly what the presentation was going to be. And had it not crashed, you would have just tolerated it. You would have tolerated the additions and editing that you did yourself along with which was already written, and the flow wouldn't have been there. So you wanted to have a flow from point A to point B, or point Z, pardon me, that is all Alison and nobody else. And there's nothing wrong with that. My takeaway from it, your computer crashing, is maybe you need to learn to back it up while you're working on it in case the computer crashes.
Told me that, but it was being backed up. But okay, I'm going. Yeah, you're right.
I'm just teasing you.
You're
I'm teasing.
100% right, though. But can I just tell you what someone else said?
Sure.
I believe this. It really pushed me as a person to really question how I'm spending my time, because I just spent 40 hours writing nonstop, 36 hours writing nonstop with dedication, blood, sweat, tears, really into it. And I saw that now I have to do it again. And I didn't have the time to do it again. And there's a lot that needed to change in my life in terms of time. And for at least the last year, that has been pressing on me. This forced me to do it. So I immediately shifted my schedule. Like, a lot changed since that. And I think that that's one of the reasons why being awake, that's, back to your question, is like, Mission Awake is about living a life in the now and in the truth. So like, for me, like, the process we go through is I help people first really identify what is actually true that is running in your thoughts and your feelings behind the scenes that's producing your results, even though you're trying with everything in you to produce different results, and you're just like, oh, this must be the cards. No, absolutely not. You're actually, when you see your results, you can see your blueprint. That's what it tells you, what is running inside. Then the next thing, once you see the truth, and this is where I think people get lost, they see the truth and then they start judging themselves. So the next step has to be that I accept myself fully and my humanity. I have stricken the word right and wrong out of my vocabulary. I do not use it in discussions with other people. It's just not something I do. It's okay, this is the truth. I accept where I am. I love me where I am. I'm going to be my very best friend. And then to your point from the last podcast about questions, you know, you hear it everywhere. The quality of our lives is in direct relationship to the quality of the questions we ask ourselves. So then we face the situation, we face however we learned the things we learned, and then you actually ask adult questions. You were just saying, you know, you're a grown ass person. Like, I'm in charge of my life. So I asked these women, who's in charge of your life today? How many times did you depend on someone else to decide what you did because you're worried about what they think? I'm in charge of my life today. So I look at what is true. Okay, in my childhood, I felt neglected. I felt shameful. I felt all these things that made me act a certain way and have certain results. Today, is that actually true about me as a human being? Now, I can be a victim and say, oh my God, you have no idea how compelling it is to whimper, losing that book. Like, can everybody feel
I can imagine it. My heart sunk when you told me it originally. So
it's so bad. It's one of those situations where everybody's like it's bad. Like,
you're not the only person that's ever happened to, though.
I know.
There's people listening to this that are going, oh my gosh, I've had that happen too. I've had this tragedy happen. And I had it happen to me years ago. I won't get into the story though, where I lost pictures on a hard drive that froze. And I spent about $1,700 at a data recovery house just to recover about 60% of these family memories, right? So, and I was constantly backing it up, but I hadn't backed it up in a couple months because life got in the way, and oh, I'll do it tomorrow, and you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Next thing you know, I got caught with my shorts down and lost 40% of the pictures. But regardless of that, it was a life lesson, right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask a couple other things here. I'm looking at, there's so many great questions I have here, but one I kind of really wanted to talk to you about would be the fact that you work with people and change their lives from a state of mediocrity to excellence. I can imagine your years of practice, you have many success stories. Without mentioning exact details, could you share with the listeners a general story of how working with somebody took them from mediocrity to excellence?
Oh my God, there's so many stories. Yeah. I'm gonna have to think of
Sure.
people, but while I'm doing that, the whole idea of that is that when you go into a mental health agency, usually the protocol is, and we were talking about antiquated systems. I swear I'm going to answer your question, but it's this is
That's fine.
yeah. So these antiquated systems, like the mental health system is, as far as I'm concerned, has a lot of major issues, and it's an antiquated system that most mental health professionals I see with all my therapists who come and work for me, when they follow what they're taught, I'm like, no, we don't do that here. Sorry, not sorry. So basically, we're a mental health movement. So what that means is the idea is we're not just going to follow this antiquated system just because everybody says do it this way. Do we even value that opinion? You know, sit there like a blank slate and act so clinical, and basically every client feels less than you. We're not like that. I mean, I'm so against that. So one of the things that really creates, and you were talking about that tender edge, vulnerability, is you are there with them as a human being. You know, you could see our place is decorated like a home. This is what we did. Every place we have is like a house. So back to the question, I mean, I have people who are heroin addicts who came in, and I have somebody I'm going to mention.
Okay,
'Cause
good.
I love him, and he wouldn't mind. He would come on the damn podcast because he's such a badass. This guy. He's a young guy, and he was a heroin addict. He was horribly neglected as a child, like rotted teeth, like from just like them giving him bottles in his crib, like neglected, just really atrocious young life. And he ended up having a child out of with another drug addict. The woman left, and him and this little baby, he was just living in his parents' house, and he was like using drugs. He has the baby there. I mean, it's just a very big mess. And the guy, he's such a shining star now. Like, he's just everything. So he has, through help, transformed himself from, you know, coming out of drug use, right? And then incrementally, you know, week after week, hour after hour, learning how to live again. So basically what we'll do is we will help them to overcome whatever tragedy or whatever is happening in their life, right? And to just gain some like a basic normalcy where they're functioning well. That's usually where, like, a mental health professional will say, okay, treatment over. That's when we step on the gas. So basically, you know, like an example would be, so then he ended up marrying someone, and the baby stayed with both of them. And I did marriage counseling with them also. And he would be like, oh my, I want a house. I said, stop saying you want a house. Say, I'm buying a house. Decide to buy a house. You know, don't be the person who's always wanting. This is just an example. This guy has turned his life around. He is like the top person in his job. He was completely in debt. He couldn't pay his bills. He basically couldn't feed his family. He now has an excellent job. He's been raised up to be like one of the best people in his position. I mean, as a like a foreman. He married someone. He had another baby. He's like this model, bright, smiling, like beautiful young man. I just can't even tell you enough. So how do we do it? It's when somebody comes in, I don't care who you are, we don't see that. You know, I see who they are, who they really are, where they're meant to be. So to me, like, you know, when it says, I lay hold of my vision, obstacles must give way. To me, I see the person, I am like projecting everything they were meant to be. And that's what I keep my vision on. So all of the other stuff is just stuff to help them see the truth in, because nothing changes until it becomes what it is. Dwight, nothing. So if he doesn't know the reason why he's raging in the car while his children are in the car and he's screaming at people, he doesn't know that it came from anxiety. You know, all fear is, you know, anger is fear's bodyguard, basically. So, you know, that's his anxiety, and it's all from the tragedy and trauma from his childhood. You know, once he knew that, and he started to, you know that when that way before he was in a rage, that he knew that things were building, you know, that his core beliefs were being ignited, and he's awake to it. Then if you're awake to something, you can control it. You can be in charge of it. If you don't know, then all of a sudden you're screaming at somebody in the street. You know what I mean? Am I answering what you were looking for?
Yeah. You've got to, you know, these people that are going through all this trauma, including yourself and me, the stories that we've told ourselves to justify our childhood traumas or adult traumas, those stories have to be changed. We have to reprogram our brain and tell the stories that are going to uplift us. But we've never been taught to be storytellers either. That's another weakness that I find is huge in our society today. We don't know how to share verbally how we are feeling or what we've experienced, so that when we can share it and we hear it, and all of a sudden that self-doubt of, did I, that's my story, that story is kind of, really, no, that can't be it. Then you have somebody like Allison that's going, well, let's dissect that story of what you've been telling yourself all these years. John's, Fred, whatever your name is, or Sally or Susie, like whatever the case may be. Let's dissect that story you've been telling yourself, that you've let the committee of they or other people, you know, cement that story in your mindset, that that's who you are, that you're never going to be worthy, or when you're upset you should get angry all the time, and that's the story your brain's stuck on. So every time something bad happens, you automatically get angry, as opposed to sitting back and thinking, is it really that bad? You don't have the skills to analyze, to break down the fact of what you're experiencing on a critical basis. And we have to work on that. We got to break down that muscle in your brain that says that you're not worthy, that story that your family programmed into you, or whoever, maybe it was a close family friend or school. And I think that what you said is so correct. And when I asked about, success stories, part of that is the fact of you reprogramming the story they're telling themselves and that they project out to the world. And obviously that young guy, the heroin addict, was successful at doing that. But honestly, could he have done it on his own? I'd say not, right? Without
You know what
having
it
some
is?
guidance, it wouldn't have happened.
Like they say that it takes two to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And like the thing, I love what you say about telling stories, because one of the things, like even in the 12-step program, when people tell their story, they just tell their story, and I encourage people to tell their story, because when the story happened, they were in a context that may not have been loving, that may not have been non-judgmental. But when they repeat the story in a context of acceptance, of love, no matter what they say to me, there's zero judgment. So now they're in the context of someone who's there for them, who sees them as great, right? Now the story is experienced neurologically. It is reframed structurally in their brain in the context of acceptance, of love, of non-judgment. Little children who have an experience when they're young, now usually what happens, the emotion that would rise up when they're little, let's say they're traumatized, depending upon who their parents are, if they were taught not to cry or whatever it is, if they know that they cannot feel that feeling, because if I feel this feeling outwardly, like shared outwardly at this time, it will be bad for me. Maybe someone will hit me, they'll tell me not to cry, or they'll ignore me. So they learn to split off from the feeling, and it's like they abandon that younger part of themselves. So that story is just emotionally buried alive. So it's living out in their life. Now they grow up and they learn that's a survival skill. I don't talk about my vulnerable places because it's not safe to do so. Because the only context that we can grow in emotionally is in the context of love. It's just not possible to grow emotionally. We can grow physically. That's why you see two adults screaming at each other in the room. There's not any adult in the room. This is an unnecessary, there's two people
Reaction.
screaming about
Yeah.
a younger emotion, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah.
And
So
they pattern what they've experienced and
yeah,
lived, right? So, and it's a tough thing, because I don't necessarily want to, but it just happens because I deal with couples that are fighting and scream, or they can't get along, or they're going through breakup, and it's all their patterns of how they deal with one another were laid down to them, and they accepted them on a conscious and a subconscious level from when they were children. And it's a tough thing for people to have to accept the fact that there's a different road, right, that they can travel on, because they're traveling on the road of society has laid out for them, that's conditioned them to believe a certain way, to deal with adults a certain way, just like that children should better to be seen than not heard. society stifled kids to be quiet. So then when they become adults, they're still thinking that, well, if I speak out loud, will somebody get mad at me? Will they say that I shouldn't have spoken my 2 cents? Will I get, like you said, berated, yelled at, whatever the case may be? Our society and the old wives' tales, I call, air quotes, the old wives' tale, or the old, ways of thinking need to change, and they're just not changing fast enough. And then people have kids and they propagate it to their kids and their kids. And then when couples get together, they have their messed up way of growing up, possibly. The other person has their messed up ways, and they get married, and then they propagate two different messed up ways of thinking to that kid that now gets married to somebody else. And it just keeps on getting worse, and it festers more and more. It's
And
just,
they end up on my couch. They're right there. Yes.
Or they end up in front of me and they're talking and I'm goal setting with them, and they can't even fathom the fact of having a vacation or having entertainment. We talked about that earlier in regards to fun factor, right? How much fun are they allowed to have? And for me, most of those questions, when I'm talking about them about entertainment, vacation, it's all tied around money, right? And the people will do things that are wrong to aspire to have more money, or they'll work 2-3 jobs because they have no choice but to have that money to pay their bills, yet their emotional quotient and their mental quotient aren't being fulfilled, and their family quotient, because they're not around their family as much because they're working so much. Or even if they do have a day off, their brain is so messed up, they still can't be present with their families. And then financial strife then flows into their family falling apart, their relationships with their spouses falling apart, their family, like their extended family. I see it crumbling. I've seen it for 18 years now. And how many I've suggested go get counseling, because I'm not a counselor. I can talk to them about life experiences and give them some little bit of advice, but I can't help peel back the layers of the onion like you would. But so many people have a stigma about counseling too. What am my family going to, I've heard that. Oh, no way. My wife knew that I was going to do that, or my husband knew I was going to do that. Or can you imagine what the neighbors would think if they knew I was going to counseling, or the family would think? Oh, I've heard it all. Like, really,
but
quit living your life through other
screaming
people.
at one another.
Pardon me?
But they're okay with like screaming at one another. Maybe, it's interesting because you're talking about the financial piece. And I mean, you definitely obviously know this, that we all have a financial blueprint. We all have, and it all was passed down to what do people believe about money, and money is a concept. It's whatever meaning we attach to it. It's as good
money has no emotion. It's
right,
emotionless.
but we apply all of these ideas to it that we don't even know we are applying. I feel like that helped me so much to really I'm always trying to filter out what my mindset is about money so I can allow it into my life. If you believe you can't manage money, right, then you can't.
Well, and and sadly, when money is, I've seen it destroy so many lives. I've seen it uplift people's lives. And I try to tell people, if you live a life, and again, this is going to be more specific to what I help families with. If you live a structured life on purpose, you need to budget your money. You need to understand that if you're making $1 and you're spending $1.20, there's no good that's going to come out of that long term in your life. But yet, what you mentioned, we learn these patterns of behavior from our parents. We learn that from other people. They'll go out and they finance absolutely everything, and they make you feel, well, why don't you just go buy one of those? Just put it on your credit card or whatever, and that's the norm for their life. And the other person feels, well, if I don't do that, am I going to fit in with that segment of people? They're buying what they want. They're charging it. They're living a life that's not on purpose. They're living it by accident. And they seem okay because they're only seeing the facade of what that person's life is. And it's not okay. They're not seeing behind the scenes that, I'll tell them stories like, what? I can go up to clients and they got a big 3,000, 4,000 square foot home. They've got 2 fancy cars in the driveway. They got a boat, they got a cabin, this and that. And you open up the doors of their facade of their life and you look inside, you'd be scared shitless
Yeah.
of how they're on the verge and literally 90 days away from losing it all. One or the other loses their job, or their company goes through a downfall like the pandemic, and now they're not getting as much business to bring in the income, and they're on their house of cards. They're living with more months than money forever. And I start breaking that down and going through it with them. The emotions are like, wow. When the people have to realize that their one spouse has multiple credit cards and been hiding it, or those are the clients that don't get invited back to their homes.
Yeah, I got
There's
it.
lots because it's caused too much strife. And then if we wouldn't allowed that guy into the house, you wouldn't have found, you know what I mean? So it's always pointing the finger instead of them taking the blame for them being an asshat when it comes to finances. They basically blame everybody else, including me. I've been yelled at, screamed at.
Oh,
well, why did you have me come into your home then when I told you we're going to, this is a holistic approach. You got a goal set with me. I got to know where your headspace is now. What do you want it to be in the short-term future? What you want for retirement? What's your goal for dying? Right. And I tell people this simple phrase. They'll say to me, what's your elevator pitch? And I've been using it for 18 years. A guy by the name of Blair Singer helped me learn how to do this. He's another motivational guy. Stand up on stage and he says, what would you tell people if they say, what do you do, Dwight? I help people live better today, retire in comfort, and die with dignity. Is that something you'd like to learn, Alison? And I will. I'll shut up. And then because the next person that answers the question loses. So when I say to them, do you want to live better today, retire in comfort, and die with dignity? Alison, is that something you find interesting? I don't say nothing until you answer, because the person that answers loses. And why do they lose? Because they've given up their shield. They've become now vulnerable to me to be able to start working with them. Well, thank you for being honest, Alison. Let's start here. Let's begin. Here's some goal sheets. Mark down some of the goals you'd like, and we start breaking that down. And as I'm going through their goals and I start gathering information, it takes multiple meetings to do what I do if people are open to learning the proper way. And most of them aren't. They just want to be sold a product. They want to be sold something. Get the hell out of my house. Make everything better for me. Take the magic wand and go poof, and your life's going to be better. I can't do that. It took you years to get to this point. Just like somebody, it takes you years to gain a couple hundred extra pounds that you shouldn't have. It takes you longer to get rid of it than it took to gain it if you're not doing the right things. Same thing with your finances. This isn't going to happen overnight. Yes, it's going to be tough. You got to budget your haircuts, your oil changes. Oh, you give out Christmas presents, right? How much do you spend? Oh, I don't know. It takes me, do you pay cash for everything at Christmas? Oh, no, usually you put it on credit cards. How long does it take you to pay it off? Oh, it could take me a year till the next Christmas. And I'll look at them. That sounds similar to a lot of people that I talk to. Do you see a problem with that? Not understanding how much money, right? Does it cause you a lot of emotional stress throughout the next 12 months, knowing you're going to get a credit card statement and maybe you're only going to pay the minimum payment because you can't pay more than that? Well, maybe I could. Well, how do you know if you can pay more than that if you don't understand the inflows of your money, how much you're spending, if there's anything extra, so that you can pay your debt off quicker? Would you like to learn all that stuff, Alison? Oh, maybe. Well, when are you going to know? Like, I have to ask them questions. When are you going to know if you want to learn all that stuff and how to live your life on purpose and understand your inflows and outflows? Well, why would I have to budget haircuts? I hear all of it. Well, if you spend money to get a haircut, does it take away from your cash flow to pay down debt, to save for a vacation, to save for retirement, to put little Johnny or Sally into extracurricular activities? Do you understand that $20 adds up to another $20, to another $20, and then you're broke? You're living life by accident. You're living with more months than money. And I try to create that emotional, does it always good? No, sometimes the emotions are very, very raw and real. But most of them, at the end of the first meeting, I'll say to them, if anything, I hope that I've instilled some hope in you and the faith that you can get to the position where you're living your life on purpose. Though we have a long journey ahead of you, do you feel any better about your life? Do you feel better? Because I want to know. I want to ask, because if they're not feeling better, then I need to analyze what the hell did I do wrong, or what can I do differently, or should I have pulled the pin before I ever got that far?
Yeah.
Do you
No, it's
understand what I mean?
yeah, because it's like, really you're doing the same thing. It's like you're trying to join them in telling themselves the truth. And some people are ready to tell themselves the truth and some people aren't. So it's unless I'm ready to see the truth, then it's not really that possible to make the change, because it's just like anything. If you don't see it, you can't change it. You
And
can't.
both people have to agree with it, though.
Yeah, and it's like, it can be like on your end, you're seeing the value and how important it is for them, and it's probably frustrating for you because you want so much more for them. And it's like, I'm in a different type of a situation because I have longevity, like I have week upon week, so I can see it in increments, them changing. But you're having this meeting with them, and if you're not having it like maybe as regularly
Consistently,
as
they
I
don't
am.
want it. They don't want it consistently, though, because
Right, because
people
if they
put more energy planning their 2-week vacation every year than
yeah,
they do in their financial life and living life on purpose.
yeah,
Because our schools, their parents, their associations growing up never ever
yeah,
put finance as the number one focus to a solid foundation for a healthy health. Because it does. It makes an easier, healthy emotional life. It stops violence in families,
mhm.
because addiction issues come
Yeah,
up
but who's
because,
taught them? Who's
pardon
taught
me.
them?
Yeah,
Who's taught them?
exactly.
No one. I didn't
Nobody.
never learned anything.
So
It's
it's
like, and
tough. It's a tough journey. Some days my job can be really,
you're parenting them in a way.
oh,
Like,
yes.
like it's like kind of like something, but somebody's going to welcome learning something that they so desperately need, and some people aren't because they're just not ready. You know,
Sometimes I think I should start. I've always done it for free because
yeah,
the way I make money is I help them get through their situations and they start investing a little bit, or they
yeah,
buy some insurance or health care, whatever they end up getting, long-term care. I make money on commission on that. Sometimes I've thought about it, and it's a little late now. I wish I would have done a fee for service basis, where I charge for my services, because when you give something to somebody for free, they treat it like that.
mm,
Not everybody does, but a majority of the population treats. So when I say, no charge, I'll help you through all these processes. I'll have 3, 4 appointments with you, each 2 to 3 hours long, and we'll break this all down.
yeah,
And, by the time we're done, you're going to understand specifically how to live life on purpose, not by accident. I'll be your coach along the way. I have clients still today that I've started budgeting with them 18 years ago, that every couple of years they'll show me their budget. They still budget, and they'll say, and I'll go,
oh yeah,
wow, you've gotten really finite for that. You budget everything, and you
yeah,
should
that's
budget
cool.
everything,
Cool.
right?
Because they're in charge of their life. It's like they're seeing the truth and they're taking charge, like what
And
we're talking
living it.
about, and living it.
Yeah.
And there's a freedom in there. I mean, I'm preaching, I'm just saying what you're saying, but
Yeah. Yeah. Of
it's,
course. That's okay.
yeah.
So, we're coming up on the next hour here. So I'm just looking.
You have to go. Tell me, yes, me.
That's okay. You know what? I'm just looking here. There's one more question I wanted to ask you here, and
Okay.
then we'll wrap up the podcast. And this one's going to be back to more so of the associations and what I talked about. And I said I had this in some of my questions. So we all have learned behaviors that we learned as children by family, school, and others we take into our adult lives that keep us subservient and on a hamster wheel. We follow that construct, and in many cases do not realize anything can or should be different unless someone educates us, or we have a realization ourselves that things could and should be different in our lives. I know you feel it is our responsibility to break these cycles. What role do you feel associations in our lives play in regard to people staying stuck?
Oh yeah. I think there's a tremendous relationship, um, because I think it comes in all different ways. So like, for example, if somebody had, like, let's start in childhood. If someone has a lot of shame in childhood, or they feel, if they're neglected or abused, most likely they won't feel worthy of a better friend. So they will gravitate towards someone who has also been neglected or abused or something like that, who would not be someone that, I'm not classifying a child as like, better than or less than, but somebody who's like in the same struggle. So what we find with people who are, let's just say, using drugs as a progressive disease, as they progress through the illness, their friendships downgrade and downgrade and downgrade. They leave friendships that will expose or illuminate their dysfunction, right? So what will happen is that, let's say somebody's an alcoholic, and somebody who's an alcoholic is not going to really want to hang out with me because I'm really not a drinker, So basically, if they're sitting with me and they're drinking, it's going to illuminate their drinking, which feels shameful. So they will gravitate towards those who are drinking. That's just an example. So, and I'm not knocking on drinking.
It's a great example though.
But then, you can look the other way. So that's how people get stuck in different associations. But somebody who actually is an addict, I don't know why I keep talking about addictions, but one of the things that needs to happen, that's why the 12-step program works well in this way, is that they have to leave their old associations because they will use again. So the actual meetings that they go to, that becomes their social life, and they end up developing. It's like it's a design for living that they learn that replaces their old way. And the other thing is, I think, I don't think, it's true that, how like women who are in a pod of women, they end up menstruating at the same time. Did you ever hear that?
Yes, I have. Actually, yes, I have.
Like, oh, we all have our period, whatever. So now it's together, but now they have discovered that people who are together share brainwaves. So when you're with someone, let's say your brain, there's the whole pattern of brainwaves. So if you're in beta, high beta, and the other person is in beta, and you're like, I don't know if I could do this at the same time, but one's going fast and one's going slower, they're going to equalize and they're going to become similar, their brainwaves together. So what will happen is you'll start to morph. You won't even realize it. And we also have mirror neurons. So we mirror back. We gravitate, like begets like. We're drawn toward becoming alike. So if you're with someone who's doing things that, if you're doing them and you're surrounded by that, the longer you're in a society or community, you'll start to morph and become more like them. And it's not even just, it's actually biological. It happens. So yes, I think that just like we upgrade and grow and grow and grow, I think we need to grow in our relationships also. I think that's very important. Like if a relationship isn't growing and you are, like I always use the example, I know people who are listening can't see this, but I use the example, if you want to stay on a path like this and you're going straight on a path and another person is like, on a roller coaster going back and forth. If you're going together on a parallel course, let's say together, the other person is going to be banging into you, right? So either you're going to go with them. I'm showing it on the thing. I'm not.
Yeah. Well, they can watch this on video too, though.
So what'd you say?
I said if they want, they can watch it on the video too.
So like if you're going to stay on course, you're going to have to stand there while they're banging into you. And eventually they may just like be gone.
Sometimes I think what you're saying though could involve the fact that why people move away.
Yeah.
They move away from their families. I was having this discussion with one of my kids yesterday, and I obviously won't say names. I said I mentioned some of their cousins, and then I mentioned some of my cousins, and I said, do you ever think to yourself why that person moved 10 hours away? Why that person moved 3 hours away?
Mhm.
There's a reason for it, right? Because back to what you're saying, this person's waving back and forth like a roller coaster. This person's going straight, but the person in the roller coaster is still banging into him because their proximity is too close. And the person that's going in the straight line that's trying to change their life needs to literally move away so that the person
Yeah.
that's going on the roller coaster can't collide with them anymore, so that they can disassociate. And I think that's the biggest thing is people struggle. I've struggled. Oh, I've known this person for 20 years. They've done all this for me and blah, blah, blah. We live in the past to what that positive part of our relationship, and we use that to excuse the negative part of what they continually bring into our lives and what they interject into our lives. And we have to stop living that one moment of the past that was good and realize and accept all the crap that they've brought along the journey. But yet we seem to be focused on, if you're a true, look at the memes that are out there, look at your true friend. And if you're a true friend, you're never going to abandon them and blah, blah, blah. Like people that do those stupid memes are obviously people that just want to keep you pulled back and subservient and ride their disaster the rest of their lives.
Yeah, but
And
you
you
know what
just
it is? I
go
did
on,
it.
go on.
You know what it is? It's like I don't feel like you're abandoning them. I feel like you're abandoning yourself if you stay. So this idea, that people are regularly abandoning themselves in order to please other people. And the truth is that someone who's on a faulty course, on a destructive path, if you're staying with them, there's something to the idea that you're supporting their destruction. It's a very, as you sow, so shall you reap. It's like very,
Yeah.
very, it's a natural thing that if someone is being difficult or causing negativity in your life, it is, we were made, I believe, by God we naturally pull back by something that's not right for us. We just naturally recoil, but we're taught to override those feelings in the name of compassion and love. That's not love. Love is, I'm not going to bypass a spiritual law that tells me to move back. I'm going to allow you to feel the pain of being where you are. And even if that means loneliness away from me, because that is the greatest love I can give you, by allowing you to see the result of your actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
of course.
it's like, to me, we think that love is basically bypassing me, then that's love. But how could that even be the correct design? I think it's almost like playing God. God allows people to suffer, right? Because that's like an autocorrect. When we suffer, we learn, right? So
Absolutely.
that's my codependency blurb. Give me a topic. I could talk for 5 hours on it.
Yeah, I'm noticing that you and I both could go on and on. But
Believe me.
so, and we're gonna have to, this may be listeners, this may be
For
part
God's
two.
sake,
This
Dwight.
may be part two, but Alison will be back. Right? We're stuck in a good way with
Yeah,
you.
good.
So Allison, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Giving a heck and never giving up. Oh my God. Okay. So I don't even know what to say. You're killing me. Give a heck.
I don't want to kill you. I kind of like you. Keep on, stay alive.
Line is, Dwight. First of all, give a heck. I would translate that to that it's so important to love yourself enough to stop and see yourself, to be with yourself, it sounds so cliche, but I feel like give a heck is like care enough about the creation in you, what you were designed to be, and hear the voice. I know everybody who's listening, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that they know that they're made for more, and they're silencing that. So give a heck enough about yourself, right? And what's the other part? Say it again. Give a heck and what?
And never giving up.
Oh, and never give up, because you know what, you want to know the number one person we're supposed to not give up on is ourselves. I am literally my number one best friend. And I know that sounds like a meme. It sounds so,
No, I love
but
that.
it like there is nobody I'd rather spend time with than me. Crazy as it may seem, because it's counter.
Did you always feel that way though?
No.
So listeners, it takes
Yeah.
work. It takes
Yeah,
work.
I would look in the mirror and be like, and just berate and abuse the crap out of myself forever. And then I finally was like, wait a minute, I am my number one bully. Most women, their number one bully is themselves. So that's what I do with these women. I'm like, oh no, we just have to be our cheer section. So like if I'm stressed, I'm in the mirror, I'm trailing. Holy crap. I'm in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, you're never gonna make it. You know, you're late or you look like crap. I'll be like, Allison, you are a badass. And you know what? Everything you do works out well. You got this, girl. You're fine. And you know what? Breathe one step at a time. Would you rather show up ugly or late? Pick one. And it's always late. I'd rather be late than ugly. That's my close. Did I even answer you?
Oh yeah, that's perfect. For the people that are watching this, listeners, I'm sorry you don't get to see how lit up Allison's face was with her beautiful smile. It's just, yeah, that's a great response. At the end of the day, we are who we are, and we just have to keep on giving ourselves, more. And I don't want to say positive affirmations, because I'm the type of person that doesn't, and I have people that don't like when I say this, but wow, I don't really care. I don't believe in the secret. I believe that we cannot, talk ourselves into having stuff happening. It is one portion of a formula for growth and change, where we use positive talk and affirmations and communicate and say things and do like I practice gratitude exercises. But if I thought the secret and manifesting stuff could be happening just through words, oh my gosh, nobody would be broken this planet, would they? Right? So
no, it's
I don't.
a belief system.
Pardon me?
It's a belief system. I interrupted your close. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, that's okay. If you want to add something to it, go ahead. But I'm just not a big fan of people thinking that they can, talk things into existence. I think we need to talk ourselves into continually staying evolved, where we continually evolve, and where we, like you said, we say we're worthy, we're a badass, I'm the best possible leader. Stuff like that is not wrong, because it rewires the negative thought processes that our brain gravitates to pull us back into its comfortable place. All right, our brain has, like you said earlier, a comfortable place. So I basically, people just keep on keeping on, keep on working on your associations, keep on being the best version of yourself. And I'm telling you right now, the hardest thing to do is to do it on our own, right? Find people that are like-minded, reach out to people like Allison or myself. If I can't help you, I will direct you to people that can. Never feel that you're alone, that you're not worthy. Is it easy? No, it's not. If you're somebody right now that's feeling helpless, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling anxious, you feel like you're not worthy to have success, that society has constantly bombarded you with negativity and pulled you backwards, it's still never too late. I know people in their 60s that are going through an evolution of changing their thought process of all the trauma and damage that happened to them over the last 60 years of their lives.
Yeah.
Why? Because they became part of the association of our, like I've talked about with Allison, our 365 group. We have a gentleman in there, 60 years of age, former military, struggled through his life. And you should see the stuff that he's accomplished in the last year. He had the seeds of greatness in him. He had that little apple seed that we talked about. And we as a society of group of like-minded people have watered it and he's already changed his associations, how he thinks, and accomplished so much in the last year. He had to want it though. That's the key. Whoever's listening, you have to want it. Then find the association, singular or plural, of somebody that's going to help you work through all your garbage and make you own it, make you admit that that's false, a false narrative that you've been living, and that the seed inside of you is worth growing. And it's going to take some time. It's going to have some pain, but if you're in pain through your change and you have the right associations, people will see you that you're in pain and talk you through it, help you with strategies to help change your state of negativity. Because what happens if you're in a negative state through your change and you can't reach somebody? You better have some tools easily accessible. Like I use podcasts, I use Audible, I put on books, I use gratitude exercises. Do they always work? That's a lot. I'd be absolutely not. Do they always work? Then I time myself out. I have a Dwight timeout, right? And realize that my mind's just not wanting to change at that moment. So I accept it, time myself out. I give myself a predefined timeout. The listeners will know that. I talk about that quite often. Don't give yourself the ability to time yourself out for a week, a month, a year, or years like people do. Time yourself out for a short period. Reach out to your associations. If you don't have any, you got us. Reach out to us, right? Reach out to Alison and myself, and you can have some associations of people that'll help level you up and put you into a place where we can guide you. You don't have to live in New York. You don't have to live in Edmonton. You can live wherever. We can, empower you with some good tools and ability to go out and find the people that are going to help you be the best version of yourself. So any last closing comments, Alison?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on both of the podcasts. It was really such a pleasure. And I just want to just say thank you to your audience for listening. I am grateful that they're here, and I anything that anyone needs, I hope that they, received life-giving value. That's really the mission.
Yeah, and absolutely. And like I tell the listeners, if there's something you like, do what I do on podcasts. I rewind and listen to that segment over and over again until it really, if it resonates and gives you even the warm and fuzzies or a little bit of joy in your heart or your smile, that's something you need to listen to again. So can you do me a favor, Alison, and please let the listeners know what's the best way to reach you?
There's so many different ways. I'm on Instagram as Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Service. I'm sorry, Lager Counseling, which is Lager like the beer, Lager Counseling. I'm also on Facebook for women. I just love, this is so good. I wish somebody did this for me. I wish I could be a member of this. I swear, really. It's the Women of Excellence daily challenge toward triumphant change. And that's under, it's a mouthful. I shouldn't have done that, but I did. And it's under Alison Lager. It's Alison with one L, and then it's LCSWCASAC. And that's my Facebook. Then I have an Alison Answers podcast. And what else do I have? A book, but that's not there yet.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure this all goes into the show notes off air before this ever goes live. I will make sure that we get everything you just said and we can put that in the show notes so that people can easily get a hold of you so that they're not scrambling to try to write this stuff down. They can grab the show notes off my website. Yeah. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Alison. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.